We had a mutual friend of that family that brought the case to us, and that's what initiated us into this litigation.
He kissed me, smiled, and we said, "I'll see you later." There was absolutely no warning of suicide or anything violent. I know with absolute certainty that if Charles had any idea of the side effects of Prozac, he would never have taken it. This drug is most assuredly responsible for any torment or suffering and the eventual suicide of my husband. I want people to be aware of what can happen when you take the drug Prozac. Thank you.
From that point forward, I was obviously moved by not only the problems related to the drug companies hiding information about the drugs, their knowledge and awareness of the suicidality issue even prior to the drugs being approved, but also the family members of the people who were suffering, the victims who had lost their family members.
The ease with which Lilly and the FDA were able to manipulate the science behind Prozac is a medical scandal, an egregious example of how money, power and lies have won over truth and the safety of consumers everywhere.
The biggest scandal that's been involved with SSRI production is that all manufacturers who have a major SSRI on the market were well aware before the drugs were licensed for use that they had serious side effects, and all of them, to my knowledge, and I have some in-depth knowledge of this, took steps to hide that information prior to drugs being licensed, indicating suicide ideation, and that they were well aware of that before the drugs were even on the market.
Yet Prozac is now being recommended very aggressively.
Because it's the only one that's still licensed. It's the only one that's still considered safe to use in teens and children.
Who considers Prozac to be safe?
Well, the regulatory bodies generally, the MHRA, the FDA.
In 1991, the FDA again had an opportunity to set things right. Faced with thousands of suicides and serious adverse reactions to Prozac, consumer groups and others forced the agency to hold public hearings on the drug.
The topic for today's advisory committee meeting is the possibility of a causal linkage between the emergence and/or intensification of suicidal thoughts and acts, suicidality that is, and/or other violent behaviors, and the use of antidepressant drugs.
This video is all that remains from nearly 22 hours worth of public testimony about Prozac. It provides further proof that the risk of suicide and violence was well known to the FDA in 1991.
I was put on Prozac for weight loss since I'd had a baby the year before and I was having a hard time getting the stubborn pounds off.
My father took Prozac. I think he started taking it around May of 1990.
Lindsay's mother began taking Prozac in August of 1988.
The doctor told me that this wonderful new drug Prozac would really get me through this rough time that I was having.
Prozac, new on the market, seemed the perfect drug for me, or so said my doctor, because of the minimal side effects, namely weight loss.
I literally quote my physician, quote, "Suzanne, sometimes patients lose 5% of their body weight, but then we can never be too rich or too thin, can we?" End quote.
We trust our family doctors. My family doctor trusted Eli Lilly.
My first reaction came at 2 weeks. I remember sitting in the car, and I reached over and I grabbed my husband, and I said, "I feel like I'm dying." I felt like I was leaving my body.
I took Prozac for exactly 11 days, during which time I experienced annoying and increasing dimness of vision, irritability, headaches, and tension.
And only 3 days after being put on Prozac, I started having terrifying nightmares.
The fourth week, I had total loss of appetite, complete insomnia. Anxiety literally was pouring out my ears.
By the 14th day, I was experiencing such intensified fear that I could not stand to face life as it was for me anymore.
I'd wake up screaming, and the nightmares always had something to do with death.
I immediately had severe headaches, violent thoughts in nature, which is totally against my character. I had never had violent thoughts before. I'm a pacifist.
Where suicide had never been a logical solution for any reason for me.
I took the 9mm automatic, sat down on the bed and put the gun to my head.
Because I tried to commit suicide in front of my 5 children.
My wife shot and killed both of these 2 boys right here.
Took a 12-inch butcher knife and stabbed himself violently in the abdomen once, and then proceeded to do it twice. Thank God I was a lousy shot. I was a victim. Lily, you answer me. You tell me what happened to me.
She turned the gun to herself and shot herself twice. Now she's in jail for murder.
Well, I'm not a doctor, but I wouldn't think you would have to be a mental heavyweight to soon figure that Prozac...
I was only put on for weight loss. Weight loss! My sister did commit suicide in front of Lindsay. Another woman spoke...
That gun, I later learned, was loaded with hollow point bullets, and I shut up the plot thickens here.
That the only way to have peace and serenity again was to die.
Do all of you want to take this drug? Do all of you want to walk around humiliated for the rest of your lives?
But I did this right in front of my son.
As you hear the many stories today, you can see we are real people, not small percentage numbers of a minority suffering these silent adverse effects. Please, look at us. Listen to us. Today, I'm here to stand up for myself, my right as a human being, which I feel I was robbed of.
I want to ask y'all, don't let this happen to nobody else. These are real people. You know, these murders and things are senseless. You know, it's time to put a stop to it.
That's why the FDA is out there, to help us, to protect us.
But love is such an awful thing to lose.
The worst thing about it is it's the same story. It'd be one thing if you heard different stories and they didn't quite fit together, but you hear the same thing over and over again, and you have the difficulty of explaining to your client as they become to realize that all of this was known before their family member took the drug, only they didn't know it, and their family member didn't know it. And it didn't have to happen.